Welcome into another edition of the Demon Huddle, presented by Cross Financial Group here on YouTube. Joined, as always, by Northwestern State head coach Blaine McCorkle to kick things off. And, Coach, let's just jump right into the Southeastern trip. And it's been a place that's been a tough spot for you the last couple of years, your first 2 years here. This week, it's complimentary football you've been chasing, consistency you've been chasing. You really didn't kind of see any of that in a sense, but there were some things I know that you pointed out post-game you really wanted to focus on.
Yeah, and Southeastern's been a tough one for us for a long time. That's the 15th time in a row that they've beat us. So we're going on a 15-game losing streak to the folks in Hammond, and good for them. You know, one thing I mentioned after the game is give them their due. They've got a really, really good football team and a really good program. And, you know, Coach Selfo's in his 8th year there, and in his 8 years, he has built a powerhouse at this level. You know, I would, you know, a little early to predict what's going to happen in the postseason, but you know, them and Stephen F. don't play each other, but they're both kind of in the driver's seat right now, along with Lamar. It's kind of a three-man race like right now. We'll talk about Lamar here in a minute, so it'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out as the year goes on. But give them their credit; they've got a really good football team. But we've got to do our part too, you know, to compete a little bit better and give ourselves a chance to win. And we didn't do those things. And you're right, we did not play complimentary football at all. You know, we never really got a real rhythm going offensively. There were spurts on defense where we went toe-to-toe and did some good things, but we didn't help them out at all with short drives on offense and, you know, a poor performance in our kick game. You know, our punt team really, really hurt us during the game. We had a punt of 10 yards and a punt of 12 yards and a blocked punt, and that will get you beat. You know, it doesn't matter who you're playing. That doesn't help you. You know, those three combined really led to 21 points, plus the kickoff return is 28 right there, right off the bat. With kicking game miscues. So those are some things that we've got to focus on this week, try to get better at, and we will. Coach Wackenheim does a tremendous job with our special teams, but we've got to execute what he's asking our kids to do, you know, and be better with those things. So we will. You know, those things are correctable, and hopefully we learn from it, and, you know, that kind of can springboard us into playing another really good team again this week in Lamar, who's not much different than Southeastern once you kind of break them down.
We'll touch on that. We'll get to them, as you mentioned, in a minute, but when you talked about Frank Selfo there, you said 8 years. Continuity is such a big thing. We saw it before Tim Rebo left Nichols, kind of the same situation. Yeah. Similar to probably how you felt, or most people in your former conference felt with what you guys had going at Belhaven.
Yeah, very similar. You know, we were there for 6 years. By the time we got to year 6, we were as dominant as anybody in the league. You know, we could call anything we wanted, it was going to work, because it takes that kind of time to build a sustained program of any kind of prominence. You know, we've talked a lot about there's a lot of ways to quick fix a program, but those are built on sand, and we're not going to do that, because, you know, we want to do this thing for the long haul. And sometimes when you do that, you got to take your lumps, and you got to be patient, and you got to see farther than your face mask, as we tell our kids sometimes. You know, for the layperson, can't see the forest for the trees sometimes, right? So that's part of it. But yeah, he's been there 8 years, and he's had a lot of staff continuity, and you know, their recruiting base is set. You know, their philosophies are set. They know what they want to do. They know the expectations. So, you know, they kind of come up and go to work and hold the standards. And, you know, we talk about as a staff, you know, we're all kind of fans of Southeastern. You know, the way they operate, the way they play, the way they do things. You know, which was thinking that's the other one that we're really kind of fans of is Lamar. Those are kind of the two that we kind of look at and say, all right, as we build this thing, who do we want to be? Southeastern, Lamar. You know, they do it right. And it's interesting to watch and study, and they're kind of the standard.
As we get into that, Pete Rosamondo, not as entrenched in his current job as Frank Selfo is, but you mentioned that. Again, what do you see in terms of those similarities when you kind of go deeper, maybe than just doing it right?
Yeah, I was meeting with our defensive staff this morning for a few minutes, and you mentioned our teams at Belhaven, and our defensive staff was talking about Lamar's offense. And they said their offense basically is what our offense was at Belhaven the last 2 years we were there. They were big, they were physical, they were strong. We knew we could just line up and run the ball and pound away at you and take a shot when we needed to. And that's kind of what you see in Lamar and the way they've built it, you know, and kind of like Southeastern and different. You know, he's in his 3rd year there. He took over a program that was not very good on the field. But I think different from here, he took over a little bit different culture, a little bit different atmosphere, a little bit different locker room than what was here compared to there. He was just a different animal as far as that goes. And we all know that. We don't need to rehash that. But he's done a good job building that thing, you know. And one thing that's interesting about Lamar, you know, they're 6-1 right now. They're having a really good season. They're playing a lot of close games. They're calling them the cardiac cards, is what they've kind of been dubbed, and rightfully so. It's fun to watch kind of what they've done. They had the fewest number of guys going to the portal of anybody in the conference. They had 13 with both windows, I think, last year by my count. They might tell me it's a little bit different, but bottom line, they've had the fewest of anybody. That's kind of proof of what we've been saying all along will work over time. They're kind of modeling that for us, and so that's kind of encouraging to watch that we're trying to follow that same model.
You mentioned that, and we'll talk about the cardiac cards, great finishes for them and their fans, maybe not for some other people involved in watching those games. But when you look at that, you always want to tell your kids, we want to be close in the fourth quarter. We want to give ourselves a chance to win. When you're dealing with a team like that, do you just, at that point, hope you can run away and hide? And on the flip side, when that happens, do you just begin to feel within a locker room in general that no game is too far, no lead is too much, and we're always in a position to win?
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, I don't really understand run away and hide. I'm not really sure what that even means. I'm not sure, but no, we want to get in the fight. That's who you want to play. Is a team that's tough and is fighters, and that's if you're a competitor, you want to line up against the best and see where you match up. And when you see that they've won all of those close games and last minute wins and things like that. That tells me two things. All right, they've got a good football team, to be in position to win games late, and they've got unbelievable character and culture to do it time and time again. That's a team that believes in each other, believes in themselves, believes in their staffs, and that's what happens. We're a team that gets in a lot of close games. They lose one, they win one, whatever. You don't know. But if you could do that time and time again, that tells me what's going on in that locker room, and it's pretty impressive.
Well, the running away and hide was not a fight. It was just build a big enough lead, I guess is a better way to say it.
Yeah.
You talked about the culture there, and we've talked about it. I mean, this is going to be week 9, game 8 for you guys. But, I mean, your culture and where it is always changing, as you mentioned. But it seems to have solidified even through a little bit of a rough stretch on the field.
It has. I think we know who our kids are now. Last year I can't say that I knew at this point how our team was going to respond to different situations. I think I do with this team. They're still growing. They're still incredibly young, as we know. And anytime you're dealing with youth, you deal with inconsistency on and off the field. But I think our kids are starting to see the big picture of who our program is, where our program's been, and where we're going. And if they can step outside themselves and have that kind of perspective, I think over the long haul, that's really going to help us do something really special here, which is what we're going to do, just like Lamar's doing there. I think it's the same model. It really is. I think it does allow you to have a little bit of faith and trust in your kids that they're going to show up this week, go to work, and be excited to play another really, really good team. They'll be excited to be at home again. We've played 7 games, and only 2 of them been in our stadium. That's tough. That's tough for anybody. So we'll be excited to be back home and put together a good work week and see what we can do with these guys.
Building on that, as we talked about last week, was and 7 weeks into the year, everyone's got bumps, everyone's got bruises. People are going to miss games because of injuries.
Yeah.
You had to have some guys step in and kind of be next man up. And I think in that situation, you saw Eli Anderson respond. You saw Ramon Rinkin respond. You saw some of those guys that maybe had snapped. Jeremiah James and Trevor Allen, their roles changed a little bit this week because of an injury within that room. But again, stay ready so you don't have to get ready situation. But they were able to step in and probably feel like there weren't as much difference maybe as it would have been perhaps a year ago.
Yeah, there's no question about that, and that speaks to what we were saying about our mindset and our culture and where we are and where we've grown to. Ramon Rinkin did a great job stepping in with Caesar being out, filling that role there at corner, and he will again this week. He's only going to get better as he goes. And then, JJ and Trevor are 2 really, really young backs, a redshirt freshman and a true freshman. And there was enough there on film and in the game the other day that people can kind of see these 2 guys are going to be really good. Once our offense kind of grows around them and they have some opportunities and some more touches, they'll get better with every touch. So it gives you a lot of confidence for where we're going in the future. Still going through those bumps right now a little bit, as you do. But yeah, that's part of the season is you're going to lose people. Southeastern's lost people, Lamar's lost people. That's what happens this time of year. So what you want to do is build enough depth where you kind of weather those storms and you don't bat an eye. You throw the next guy in and you go to work.
And now you mentioned it, 5 of the first 7 on the road. At least 3 of the last 5 are at home. And you get in a little bit of a rhythm where you're going to go, starting with last week, away, home, away, home, away, home. So does it allow you to not get comfortable? That's probably never the right word to say to a coach. I know comfort's the worst thing. Complacency and comfort are probably your 2 biggest enemies. But do you get in a little bit of maybe a rhythm with this? You're finally into something that feels, for lack of a better word, maybe normal?
Yeah, you do, and comfortable can be used a lot of ways, you're right, but yes, there is some comfort in knowing what the schedule is. Our schedule every week doesn't change. We do the same thing every week because if your players or your coaches come in wondering what the schedule is going to be for the week, they're coming in thinking about the wrong things. So we try to be very consistent in our process throughout the week. A Monday's a Monday, a Tuesday's a Tuesday, a Wednesday's a Wednesday, and so on. And our kids know that. But yes, when you go 5 out of 7 on the road, it does drain you after a while, and it does take a toll on you psychologically. And buses and airplanes get old after a while. So it will be nice to be back home, be comfortable, sleep in your own bed, not be worried about what does change with those is what time you leave and where you stay and all those things. So we will have a little bit more consistency here in the back half of the season, and then there's nothing wrong with that.
Hopefully that consistency will lead to more consistency on the field, especially starting Saturday afternoon or evening. 4 o'clock kickoff against Lamar. We'll be back after talking with Coach McCorkle. We'll hear from Matt Connor, Northwestern State Defensive Coordinator, here on the Demon Huddle, presented by Cross Financial.
Super One Foods is proud to be named the official grocery store of the Northwestern State University Demons. No matter where you gather to watch the game, we've got everything you need at Super One Foods, all at super low prices. Plus, you can order online and enjoy same-day pickup with our convenient curbside service. Talk about a game changer. Score big when you shop at Super One Foods, your official NSU Demons grocery store.
Welcome back into the Demon Huddle, presented by the Cross Financial Group, joined now by Northwestern State Defensive Coordinator Matt Connor. And Coach McCorkle talked about it. Consistency is something that's always being chased. There were moments Saturday evening in Hammond against a very good offense where your team, your side of the ball, stood up and went toe-to-toe with a very good offense. And I know you want to build on that. Do you just pluck those moments out and say, hey, guys, this is one. Next week, if we do it twice or 3 times, and then build on it like that?
Yeah. Well, starting off, I want to give Southeastern a ton of credit. The roster that they've put together, I'm speaking mainly for the offensive side of the ball, but they've done an unbelievable job of putting that offense together and getting some weapons and then understanding how to use them. They're arguably going to be one of the best offenses we face all year. Not that we don't have a very good one coming up this week, but just very different style and what they presented to you. So hats off to them. But you're right. We had some moments Saturday where our guys, all kind of got on the same accord and all 11 did their job and proved that when that happens, we can line up and play toe-to-toe with a very, very good offense. And so that was encouraging to see. And I told the guys that, Sunday night. But I followed that up with, moments don't win ball games. And so we've got to recreate those moments time and time again to expect to be in that game in the fourth quarter in the future.
Well, you've talked many times when we've had you on the last couple of years about straining,
Yep.
And that's from the quarter-inch line to the quarter-inch line. And sometimes it happens over the course of a trip down the field. Sometimes it may happen in the course of a play, and that's what happened with the fumble recovery that Keyshawn Reed had that ended up about 25 yards downfield. Yeah. It's not often you see a defensive lineman making that play down the field, but I think, again, it kind of speaks to what Coach McCorkle has built and the staff has built from a culture standpoint, from a mindset standpoint, and from an effort standpoint.
Yeah, that was a great effort play by Keyshawn. I can't talk about that play without talking about Jakarian Lathan making the hit and doing a really good job of what he's taught to do in that moment. We had a defender around the ball carrier already, and so you can see on film when Jakarian Lathan came in to make the hit, he wasn't just trying to come in and make the tackle, he was attacking the football, and he got it out. And then you couple that with Keyshawn just playing with great effort, straining to get to the football, and we talk all the time about let's get 11 hats to the ball. Something good's going to happen, and when something good happens, we need to have somebody there to capitalize on it. And in that moment, that was Keyshawn.
And again, to continue on with that play could have ended about 6 yards back. Brandon Hayes almost had the fumble recovery for Southeastern, but again, continuing to play to the whistle.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm really glad, unfortunately for him, that it squeaked out, but I'm really glad it did, and we were able to end up with it at the end of the play.
When you talk about facing a team like Southeastern and a team that's been able to build in 8 years of consistency under Frank Selfo, their system hasn't changed very much. They know what they're going to do. When you do that, do you take maybe a trip back to the Belhaven days and ask Coach McCorkle the same thing? When you look at it, do you see similarities in what you guys built in Jackson to that team?
Yeah, I mean there is, just because with continuity comes kind of those same effects. When you have people together and you're able to bring in a roster and retain your roster and build guys from one year to the next, and you have some true development take place. You look up and it flies by, but you look up, 4 years have passed and you're playing with a bunch of men that have been in your program for 4 or 5 years, and that's when it gets really, really fun. And that's kind of what we were able to experience at Belhaven 2022, 2023, which we were kind of discussing today in regards to Lamar. We bring in those classes and we keep them there, and we retain them, and we teach them our culture, and we teach them our standard, and we grow them up and we develop them. And then in a blink of an eye, you look and you got a bunch of grown men out there playing football that have been in that program and invested into that program for years. And when you get to that point, when that 4th or 5th year senior walks out there on the field and he's been in that program for 4 or 5 years, it just means a little more to him. And then that you see some of that in Southeastern and Lamar.
So Caden Proctor, or the defensive lineman there, that had a chance to leave and ends up coming back,
Right.
and he's been a terror for not just us to deal with. But when you look at it, kind of the next man up mentality that kind of hits this time of year, you and I talked about it right before we filmed the segment, that we're in the second half of the season now. As a matter of fact, come Saturday, it's going to be 8 of 12 games, so you're 2/3 of the way through. So everyone's going to have some bumps, some bruises, some guys who are out. Next man up's always a big thing, and Ramon Rinkin, his most snaps in a game, most experience out there on the field. Assess how he performed.
I thought he did a really good job. I was really proud of Ramon. He was getting his first start, really his first significant number of reps. And I kind of jokingly, trying to find a positive Saturday, kind of late in the third quarter, I went over the headset and said, I kind of forgot Ramon was out there. And when you're talking about a corner, that's a good thing, to kind of forget who's out there. And I forgot who's out there because he was playing well. He was doing his job. I mean, obviously there's always stuff that he can clean up, and he's going to do that. But I'm really proud of him of just, keeping his head down and working and working and working and slowly climbing the depth chart. And then when his opportunity presented itself, he took advantage of it Saturday.
How much does it help in that situation where a guy does work his way up there, at least to have some JUCO reps?
Oh, it absolutely helps. Mississippi Junior College is an extremely competitive league, and he's spent 2 years there at Coahoma defending some really good players in that league, and so that absolutely helps. And naturally, he just comes in physically a little bit more mature because he's 2 years older than a freshman, and so that absolutely helps. And I just think the fact that he's had to see receivers similar to what Southeastern had before in that Mississippi Junior College League kind of gave him an advantage.
You talked about the outside. I think from talking to you and to Coach McCorkle and looking at the numbers, Lamar's going to be a little different in terms of what they really want to do. It's kind of like standing in front of a sledgehammer.
Yeah, so I think I made the comment to the defensive staff that these really truly two polar opposite styles of offense. Both of them are very, very effective. Both of them present you problems, but they're polar opposite. Where Southeastern wanted to show you a whole bunch of looks and getting a bunch of formations in motion and a bunch of personnels. Lamar's going to line up and they're going to try to beat you up front. They're going to try to establish a nice physical run game, and then when they have the opportunity, take a shot down the field. And it's really no secret what they're trying to do. Their offensive line's extremely physical and strong, and they got really good patient backs that can get behind them and get lost. And then when those safeties start kind of creeping up to help stop that run, number 14, their quarterback, does a really good job delivering a good deep ball.
Did that early in the RGV game to put them out, and then again they've had a knack for winning close games. And I'm going to try to frame this a little bit better for you. But when you're in that situation, when you tell your guys, it's going to be a 60-minute game. But when you see teams that continue to win the way they have, whether it's been at East Texas A&M or last week against UTRGV, where they've had those literal last-minute, last-second kind of wins, where do you get to where you feel like how tough it is to maybe tell your team you've got to fight to the end because you do have that evidence there to show them that it's going to go 60 minutes?
Yeah, well, I think you got to fight to the end every week. If not, you're going to get embarrassed. But I think Lamar has done a very good job of putting their maturity level on display. Being able to be in those tight ball games and understanding how to win late. That takes a true level of understanding, is how to be in a tight ball game, to not tighten up. I think that's a really big deal. It's something that we've talked about a lot in the past, not just here, but in other places, about when you get in those moments, you got to let yourself stay loose, and you can't tighten up because the moment's getting big. You just got to keep playing, and their guys are mature, they're developed, their culture's strong, and they're able to do that late in the ball game.
So a chance maybe for your defense to grow up a little bit in the sense when you're facing a mature team like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have no other plans other than to be close. Now, I guess it doesn't have to be close. We could have the game in hand in the fourth quarter, and we won't have to worry about that. But other than that, we have no other plans other than it being close and getting in that fourth quarter fight. And that's one thing that I can brag on about our defense. We're definitely not perfect, and we got to get better at some things. But every week they've shown up and they fought and they've tried to finish and they fought hard, and they're going to continue to do that. I have no doubt in that.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time as always. And when we come back here on the Demon Huddle presented by Cross Financial Group, we'll be joined by Northwestern State Offensive Coordinator Carson Stewart.
Whether it's in the trailer, behind the camera, or on the air, NSU has a place for you. Learn the ins and outs of an ESPN broadcast while getting a full-fledged education in sports media or broadcast journalism. Northwestern State University. New media, journalism, and communication arts. Learn more at nsula.edu/new media.
Welcome back to the Demon Huddle presented by Cross Financial Group, joined now by Northwestern State Offensive Coordinator Carson Stewart. And Coach, we'll jump right in. We've talked about it with Coach McCorkle and Coach Connor. Basically 2/3 of the way through the season, everyone's got bumps and bruises, and there's a lot of next man up. And for your unit this week, the next man up was at the most noticeable position on the field.
Yeah, that'll happen sometimes over the course of a year, depending on position and the specifics of it, and that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. Next man up.
So Eli Anderson jumps in, makes his first start. Abram Johnson had to miss a game, a little bit of an injury. We'll see how his progress continues throughout the year, but assess kind of how Eli performed in his first role, or first turn as a starter at Northwestern.
Yeah, I think Eli went out there and tried to manage the game. There were some uncharacteristic things at times, but Eli's an older guy. He's got a great football IQ. He's respected by his teammates, and he's a tough player.
When you look at it, obviously, when you played the Minnesotas and the Cincinnatis, you're able to get him in and get him some game reps. Clearly, your plan is never to lose your starting quarterback. Your plan is for him to go through all 12 games. But when you look back, how important were those reps in terms of getting him into a rhythm and getting him on the same page as some of those guys?
Game reps are good for anybody, any position, any class, any age. But for him specifically, I think it did help him out.
Not defensively, sorry. They're offensively, kind of a little bit of a struggle there. Did find some momentum there at the end. And one guy that seems to be making the most of his opportunities is Jeremiah James. He had a little different role this week, again, because of an injury within there. But let's go to the swing route there in the fourth quarter. Kind of the biggest play, the most explosive play you had. Walk us through that with what JJ was able to do.
Yeah, JJ was able to find the ball in space. When he did, he's got full speed ahead and working the hash number sideline. Had two great blocks out there by some young receivers. So that was very exciting to see as well. Explosive play for JJ, got us in the red zone.
Let's talk about that. You hit on it there, blocking downfield. I mean, we've talked about, you want to have a very balanced offense, and those guys aren't just running routes and catching balls. Who were the ones you're talking about pointing out those blocks? Was it Jimmy Duncan and who else?
Yeah, that play specifically was Jackson Chason and Amaz Eugene, amongst others throughout the game. But that play specifically, we preach it as a staff, and Coach Mo, our receivers coach, does the same thing. No block, no rock. You really show your teammates how much you care about them when you perform that way without the ball.
I like it. No block, no rock. Remember, it's a hashtag that's coming for the receiver room. You talked about Jackson Chason. That's someone that I think, again, we've talked about guys getting in maybe for the first time this year. The most snaps he's played a game in, I think, his 2 years here. But again, kind of assess his performance.
Yeah, what he did was maximize his opportunities throughout the week. We had some injuries in the receiver room. That was next man up mentality, and it was him in that moment. So excited to see him get his feet wet a little bit in the game.
For you guys going into this Lamar matchup, we kind of know what they are. Physical brand of offense, which typically is buffered by a physical brand of defense. Kind of what you expect to see from the Cardinals this weekend?
Yeah, no question. They're coached very well. They play very fast. They do some different things schematically on the defensive side of the ball that are different from the last 2 weeks at least. But they get 11 hats to the ball. They're coached well. They're physical, and they rotate a good bit of guys in there, so they're going to try and stay fresh.
So depth also, again, and that's kind of where I think where we are as a program, that's being built right now.
No question.
Talked about it with Coach McCorkle, with Coach Connor too. When you looked at Southeastern and you looked at Lamar, and Coach McCorkle certainly drew the comparison to where those teams are. The one difference is the amount of time the head coach has been there. Frank Selfo, 8 years at Southeastern, Pete Rossamato in his 3rd year at Lamar. But it seems Lamar has built a consistent culture within that time. And kind of the same thing we asked those guys when you go back to looking at Southeastern. Was it very similar, or did it feel very similar to what you guys had at Belhaven?
To an extent, yes. I think continuity and consistency allow those things to happen over time. Everybody wants certain things to happen overnight. That's not the nature of the beast right now. So I think what we saw and what we're experiencing right now is just that, waking up, going back to work, constant, continual improvement, and next man up mentality, next game up mentality. Keep going back to work.
I know everybody would love to snap their fingers and have a 12-0 season. I know you guys would too, in a sense, to be able to do that. But as you continue to build this, when you play a team like Lamar and you get to play them at home, what do you hope to, besides obviously going out and try to win the game, what do you hope to impart to your team?
Consistency again. There were some things throughout the course of the game last week that were done well. They just weren't backed up by something else being done well. So we get some bodies back in some spaces this week to allow us to do some things like that. So consistency for sure, and playing fast and playing free, and just go let loose and have fun. It's a great game to be a part of.
You touched on it. We'll go back to the Southeastern game real quick. Amaz Eugene, you talked about the block that he had on Jeremiah James's swing pass, but he also kept that drive alive with a really nice catch. And that was a guy that's kind of taken a little different role this year, Amaz. And again, a lot of differences from last year to this year, but that's a big catch. He's a guy that's maximized his opportunities.
You're exactly right. And we tell the guys all the time, you never know when your number is going to be called. And when it is, maximize your opportunity. He did just that. That's kind of the world that Amaz Eugene has lived in recently. When his number's called, he's going to show up and make a play.
Same thing, I think, can be said for your tight end room. We've kind of talked about them, I think, at times. And I think Tyler Siddons is a guy that, most people at UCA, he was there for a couple of years, don't maybe not have known a lot about him, kind of maybe thought he was a blocker. He's turned into a pretty effective receiver and a guy that's just about a first down machine.
Yeah, he's really adapted well to our scheme and how we do things. He shows up every week kind of doing something different in a better way. So very encouraging to see that from him.
And again, that's a transfer that came in with 2 years behind him. So he automatically kind of jumps to the front of the room in some respects in terms of maturity and leadership.
He does, because he's seen it. He's done it full speed at this level. So that's just a great thing to feel.
5 of the first 7 on the road, 3 of the final 5 at home. How excited are you to finally get into maybe a little bit of a rhythm in terms of where you're going to be and where you're going to play?
Fired up. Love being in Turpin Stadium any given day. We're excited about that, and it's going to be nice to have a few more back here this fall.
Well, that starts at 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon against Lamar. I want to thank Carson Stewart, Blaine McCorkle, and Matt Connor, as always, for their time. And thank you for watching the Demon Huddle presented by Cross Financial here on YouTube.